This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast coming to you Friday morning. It's July 19th, and the Wolves Summer League is over now with a win last night against Houston. They wrapped it up 3-1. It was a good Wolves Summer League team for sure. I'm back in Minneapolis now and ready to reconnect with Britt Robson, who's with us today. We're just going to kind of talk about what I thought Britt was just kind of talk about what popped to us in Summer League. We've had all of the games to happen. Shannon big at the beginning, and Dillingham was missing some shots, but it's like me and Kyle were talking about out there like, well, let's wait. Let's at least give it the sample size that it has. So we'll talk about what was exciting, what was underwhelming, just sort of discuss how Summer League maybe informed us about the rookies or shifted our opinion at all about the other guys, young guys on the roster. But I know I just said this to you like a minute ago before we started recording, but how are you? How's summer going?
I'm well, thanks. It's been a good time, less activity, a little bit more music and art stuff. I'm going to see, let me think who it is. I think Dame Blanche is her name at the Cedar Cultural Center tonight. It'll be fun. It's
Dame Blanche.
Yes, she's a kind of a cumbia hip hop, various kind of a hybrid singer, born in Western Cuba, lives now in Paris. Sings in French and Spanish and English at various times. Has a good band. It'll be good. It'll be fun.
I was just telling you before we hit record. Now I'm trying to get on your level from a music standpoint. I'm going.
Oh, you're going to the big show.
I'm going to the big show. The big seeing Hippocampus and Red Hot Chili Peppers tomorrow. I'm excited to do that. Before we get just kind of jump in here, reminder that we're brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company, and perfect place to just be kind of hanging out this summer. I'm sure. I don't know. Like maybe we normally get a couple beers during August or something. It's right, Britt. Like just a perfect place to kind of go sit outside. Maybe I was thinking maybe even for not even like a big event or something, but I might just go there to watch one of the Team USA games as that kind of starts coming. But we always want to have Falling Knife Brewing Company on your radar. I know a lot of people go there for the games during the season. Maybe if you're a season ticket holder or whatever. You got a little bit more time in the summertime. Check out Falling Knife. It's obviously it's a place that supports this show, supports the Wolves. So Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis.
Yeah, the last time we talked about them, I said I was having trouble finding Hidden Temple, which is one of their IPAs that I really like. And I subsequently, all of a sudden, it was everywhere.
You found the Hidden Temple?
I found the Hidden Temple, yeah. And partook and entered the Hidden Temple from time.
I'm thinking of like some show on Nickelodeon when I was a kid that was something in the Hidden Temple. Somebody, you're not the right person to ask about that.
No.
But somebody,
my flashback would be probably to a Indiana Jones movie or something.
Your flashback might actually be going into a Hidden Temple.
A Hidden Temple, right? my Buddhist inclinations.
There you go. Okay, Brett. So if I were to just say to you, what popped at Summer League, and we'll move through all the guys, but because my answer to that, it like kind of changed over the course of the week. What popped to you about this Summer League team, whether it was a player, whether it was the group,
right?
What would be your first thing?
The incredible competence of the organization. The idea that they had a plan. They obviously had a buy-in from 1 to 12 in terms of what the plan was. And I thought they executed it really well to the best of their ability. I think they maximized most of their ability when they wanted to. Obviously, resting Shannon was a plan at some point in time because he quickly showed that he can play, and they didn't really need to get that many more good looks at him.
I don't know what it was he had a toe injury last night.
Oh, is that what it was? I don't know. I mean, I really think that
I'm not saying you're wrong. I think you're probably right of just like, hey, this is a little sore. Yeah, why don't you sit down, Terrence? Yeah.
But I also think that the defensive intensity and the fact that everybody was on a string, not only in the half court sets, but in like scrambles. When people were scrambling, people were very rarely left wide open off those scrambles. I mean, that just takes good coaching and principles from the beginning. Maybe, I don't want to blow smoke at Tim Connolly too much, especially because we're going to be talking about Dillingham in a minute. But essentially, I mean, he has gotten character people,
Yeah.
And I think these people all bought in. I think that it was good because it gave you a sense of who can play the kind of style that the Wolves want to up the tempo at both ends, I think, while retaining their defensive identity and upping their offensive efficiency. And I thought that system that they played in throughout the Summer League was an excellent way to draw a template from it that maybe, the higher priced people will be able to execute. It's going to be hard with Rudy on the floor and Rudy and Cat next to each other to play that kind of frantic scramble. It did, remind me a little bit more of the Vando Pat Bev season, but it also was. It's extraordinary to have a bunch of scrubs, which, let's face it, that is what Summer League is all about, play such unified, exhausting defense. And that's a tribute to the organization. And that never wavered. I mean, they were at the mercy of the refs. If the refs called a lot of fouls, they were in trouble because they weren't going to back off from what they do.
Yeah.
But if the refs kind of swallowed their whistles, they were dominant.
There was during the one game where there was the million fouls, the Sixers game, I thought of you. Because you and I would always laugh at Wolves games last year when Mike Conley would rarely make a turnover. Well, what would he do right after it?
He would go for the ball. He'd get it back by hook or by crook.
And it was like, whether it was Dacian Nix or Josh Minott or whatever, not by hook or by crook, by foul or by foul. They attempted to get it back. But yeah, that I did a pod with John yesterday on his show too. And there's the first thing he and I both said there as well. And I'm like, probably get some listeners like roll their eyes of like, oh, culture in Summer League or this and that. But if I'm being honest, it really surprised me. I've covered a bunch of Summer Leagues over the years, how like dialed and aggressive and intentional the defense was. That really, really did surprise me. And I will say, you alluded to Dillingham, and there's a lot, to not have loved about Dillingham Summer League. But I think that was like part of it right away. Like Dillingham, while extremely small,
he dug in. He tried.
He really did. I mean, like we were in that little gym, and so I'm like right there on the baseline underneath the basket, and he's really trying to like hit people and do that. Like he got the message, right? Or somebody delivered the message of like, yo, like this is what you need to be. You need to fight and compete and all of those things defensively, and he did. And he also
rebounded, which was really
he rebounded. He played defense and he playmaked really well. And he didn't make a damn shot. And he was short a lot on the shots. Yeah, they were very rarely long. And also, I just think he got one out. I think that the size and physicality, which is very worrisome, quite frankly. And I know he's only 19, and people will be saying he's only 21 in 2 years, and I will get it because I think they're right. Yeah. But let's not pretend when talk to us on draft night, he really hyped Dillingham. And I thought, wow, he's really hyping this guy. On the other hand, Tim Connolly has earned a lot of credibility with me, with the rest of the Wolves media, I'm sure. And so I'm thinking, all right, who am I to say? I don't watch Kentucky basketball or whatever. So he is just not big enough for the NBA right now and not smart enough to compensate for that yet. He's got a lot of natural ability. He's quick. He can see the floor. You're right about the fact he wants to play defense, and his shot will improve. But they will isolate him on defense and punish him, and they will, I think, trap him in ways that will make it very difficult for him to move the ball. Right. No, I agree. I think It's fine that an undersized player, normally it would be fine that an undersized player at 19 years old
Absolutely
looks physically outmatched even in summer league.
yes.
The only issue here is that 19-year-old is supposed to play like 18 minutes a night.
Exactly right.
And so it's like, it's one of those things, like, given the, and I've watched like all the clips of the Kentucky stuff and all the people who are way smarter than you and I about scouting on all this stuff really vouch for the shot making and those sort of things. But we got to remember, like, those scouting reports and the stuff like that, they are prognostications looking forward
Absolutely.
at what a player is going to be. So we're kind of, I think that's like this moment we're stuck in right now. And you don't want to get like, whatever, 4 summer league games. You don't want to be like, oh, this guy's never going to be able to do it. He's going to be too small. But it's a fair assertion right now to have concern about what he's going to be able to do physically come October 18th or whatever the first game of the season is, because that's what I noticed when I'm watching him play offense is like, well, one, the inability to really get downhill into the basket stuff is just, he's getting bumped and he's taking those really like wide angles. Whereas like Shannon is a straight line drive, right? Like Dillingham out of necessity is taking like a 45-degree angle.
Absolutely.
Getting to the basket, which leads to a longer layup, which leads to that's a harder shot. I mean, even saw that at Kentucky some. So you go like, all right, it's going to be hard for him to get downhill and make shots at a high clip, right? It was also hard for him to, like kind of navigate aggressive defense and the screen. He talked about it with us a little bit afterwards of like, I'm really feeling like I'm getting bumped when I'm playing in pick and roll, which is, again, leading him to take lesser and lesser angles.
He is, but that's part of the game. That's the thing. I mean,
no, he wasn't saying it like an excuse. He was like, I need to get stronger to be able to handle that.
And first of all, let me clarify that I'm not ripping Dillingham. He's 19 years old. He's obviously, one of the things I must love about him is he's got the character. He's got the idea that, hey, I need to play defense. I'm not coming in here to be some flashy Vinnie Johnson type. I've got to earn my way at both ends. And I also think, to your point about getting to the rim, he does recognize seams. They don't happen very often, but when he sees one, he goes and he can finish. He's quick. He's quick and he recognizes seams. And maybe when there are better offensive threats on the floor, those seams will happen more often, even in the NBA. So I'll grant some of that to him. I'm just saying from just a physics standpoint, he's 165 pounds. He's 6'1", and he's played a year of college basketball at a high level college basketball, but it's still not the same. He steps up a little in summer league, and our perception of him would be slightly different if he made a few more of those very makeable shots. And I do think some of that was fatigue, which owes to it, but some of it was just variance. He just wasn't hot for this week. Yeah. So I get all of that. But I think the issue is that Tim Connolly put a stamp on this guy that said, watch out for him right away. And he didn't back off from that when I gave him and everybody else gave him numerous occasions to say, how you gonna bring him along? No, we're gonna throw him in the pool, gonna challenge him. All right. Well, I think that will not be a positive development for a championship run in 24-25. I think that either that will have to be tweaked, or they are just going to have to live with it and maybe take a step back during the regular season. And, and all this is way premature. Obviously, he's got a training camp and everything else. But if you're, I'm on here on a podcast talking about what I've seen out of him for 4 games. And what I am seeing is some good things, some things that I know will be better than what I saw, and some things that just can't change for a while. And that will not be helpful.
No, how do you think Finch is going to go about approaching him and that role? Because, like you said, we've heard repeatedly, he's going to play. He's the backup point guard.
Well, I think Finch is going to love his willingness to get off the ball and get off it fairly intelligently.
Yeah.
I think Finch will give him a longer leash than we might otherwise suspect, because one of the problems with the Timberwolves that drives Finch crazy, although he will never really say so, is, indecision and stasis, is this whole idea of waiting for something to open up so that you can do something with it. And he only did that in late quarter situations or 2-for-1. I mean, he was usually just playing half court with his head up, looking for the best play. Versus like Ant and Cat and, a lot of others who just basically dribble the ball and wait for something. So I think Finch will be giving him leash there. I do worry about the second unit defense, quite frankly. He's on it, and Monty Morris isn't, and that's a downgrade defensively. Not having slow-mo, having Joe Ingles instead. Joe Ingles is like prototype slow-mo on offense in many respects, but not on defense, boy. And as good as Joe Ingles has been, and there was a time when he was like one of the 3 or 4 best defenders on Utah when they were a top 5 team. I'm not saying that he can't play defense. I'm saying that he's old and injured numerous times. And so, and he doesn't have he has the slow-mo game in slow motion, but not to the extent that it's as helpful as slow-mo has it.
Yeah, I mean, he does have the show. We've talked about this with Dillingham too. Like, what better team to go into if you're going to be an all offense, no defense guy, right? And I wouldn't say Ingles is an all offense, no defense guy, but he is a help the offense more with his shooting.
Right.
And that's obviously the difference between him and slow-mo than he is defense. But yeah, when we look at now the second unit in a vacuum, right? And you go, well, I'm not sure in October that Rob Dillingham is going to be a boon offensively, and there are going to be defensive shortcomings. And then you kind of look at some of the other guys who, Nasrid had a better defensive season last year, but we put him as a more offensive guy than defensive guy, and Nikhil in that second unit. But yeah, it's going to be different. Like the nature of all the guys who play, I didn't even really fully sink in with me until after the season, or honestly, until these transactions started happening, that I realized they didn't play anybody who didn't play defense last year. Even we were like, why isn't Troy Brown Jr. playing a little bit more? And the answer was, you asked the people, they're like, no.
The answer is what happened when they played him. I mean, seriously, the defense cratered
it. And so I say that with the Finch question of he is going to need to prioritize a little bit differently, given the personnel that he has, given what we assume Rob Dillingham is right now. I do think with Dillingham in particular, what his role looked like on the summer league team will likely be very different.
Less playmaking or less ball centric, I think, because let's face it, this is what you do. They did it to Jade McDaniels 3 years ago in summer league. They made him a point guard essentially and it was just for seasoning. Now, obviously, again, Conley in the hype machine said that he would be the point guard.
Right.
And if you have Joe Ingles on the floor, and you have Ann on the floor, he often plays with the second unit. You've got some people, and Nikhil can deal. I think where he will be a playmaker is in transition. And I do think that Finch and Conley are dead serious, and they should be. The Timberwolves turned people over and did not get many points off turnovers last year. It was a huge flaw. And it was because they have such a defensive identity that they did not do floor balance the other way. I mean, they did not, take advantage of what they had. And I think they will sacrifice some defense in order to get some points up. It'll be more of a J-Mac run type situation than a Monty Morris or somebody else type run situation. I think the second unit will be where it changes quite a bit.
But I think like Dillingham, if he is more like when he's on the floor and he doesn't need to be the primary initiator,
Right.
even if he is,
He'll hit those shots, you're thinking.
yeah, there was one play at the very beginning again of that Sixers game. I think it was the Sixers game. It was one of the first offensive possession where Dillingham hit that three.
Yeah.
And it was
he started fast the second game of the
yeah, maybe it was the second game. But it was anyways, it was a Dacian Nix, Leonard Miller, like high pick and roll, right? And it's easy for you to like kind of if you view that in the Wolves context, that's Ant and Cat or whatever.
Yep.
And they run this and they end up needing to like they run the pick and roll, they create an advantage, and Dillingham's guy has to come over to like collapse in the gap on Dacian Nix, and then it's boom, right there, swing it to Dillingham, and he hits a quick above the break, pretty open, catch and shoot three right there, and he knocks it down. And it's like, I remember thinking that, I'm like, that is probably the play that they want him to do most right now. It's good that he's getting reps as a playmaker and this and that, but of his NBA skill that's like ready to go, it will be shot making and do it and like quickly and
in the half court.
In the half court. So I think there's like more to be excited about there in his offensive situations where he doesn't need to like self-create it as advantage. I don't think he like physically can really self-create it as his advantage to the extent that he wants to. But I do think he can make shots if the advantage is created for him elsewhere. And Ant's going to create advantages. Cat's going to create advantages. Rudy creates advantages with screens and rolling all the time there. There should be opportunities for Dillingham to take significantly easier shots. And he just needs to make that shot selection, like have the diligence to like have the shot selection there of like, this is a situation where this is me. This is a situation where if I need to force this, I'm probably not going to make it. And, that's the learning curve of a 19-year-old.
I think it won't be hugely significant, but it will matter in his rookie season. The accuracy of that floater, it doesn't look great, but it, the highlights from Kentucky, it went in a fair bit, and it went in as often as his outside shooting did.
Yep.
And then, I mean, if he has a floater, if he has a Tyus Jones floater,
great point,
it would really, really help.
Well, and I looked this up during the first game, when he made I think his first bucket he made in the first game was a floater, and I was thinking about it, I was like, man, like Slow-Mo was really was one of the only or took the most of those on the team last year. I looked it up and I'm kind of rounding on these numbers, but Slow-Mo took 300 shots from floater range last year. 300, just under 300, and the Wolves as a team took 1,600 from that area. So that like includes every little cat, like kind of hook shot, everything. But that is a position of need on this team is, getting into the middle of the floor, hitting a floater. That's something Rudy could create for him. Space will create for him. I do think the floater part is big because the getting all the way to the rim and finishing part is gonna take him
and
some time.
As we talk about when we talk about Nas and Cat, repetition off the bench. I mean, Mike Conley has a floater, and so if you just run your sets and you're used to, all right, this is going to end with a point guard floater. That there's something about that repetition. Now, obviously, floaters are usually not the last gasp, but it's the final option. You can't pass for a bucket, you can't finish. You got to hit the floater. But I do think that there is, like you, I am not saying this guy is. I'm not concerned about Dillingham. But I am more realistic about Dillingham, and Dillingham needs to be edited down to a number 8 overall pick that is going to work his way into the system. He's not going to be a candidate for 6th man of the year. He's not going to be like the dynamic scorer, Rob Dillingham. So it's if we temper our expectations and are patient, and I know that's difficult given the win now window we have.
True.
With this team, then I think it all depends. You can be discouraged, or you could be, pleased, and I actually, that's what you asked on the aside from what popped. What was interesting is what popped and fizzled was like 7 guys, who just were fantastic and terrible, fantastic and terrible.
Let's grab our first break and let's get into it. I think that's the place to start. There is Terrence Shannon Jr. But we'll take our first break here. Today's show is brought to you by the Dream Team at Supreme Lending. And if you're ready for a winning mortgage experience, if you're buying a house, you need to fund it. Meet Ben Coulter with the Mortgage Dream Team at Supreme Lending in Edina, Minnesota. They have over 20 years in the business, and Ben knows how to score big when it comes to mortgage deals. He's a Wolves fan. Told us when we were getting together with him that he was at the first game at the Metrodome. Wants to work with Wolves fans in their home ownership ventures there. And the Mortgage Dream Team offers a deep playbook to help you out there. They have the 8-day close where you can close your loan in as fast as 8 days for a leg up on the competition. The $25,000 close on time guarantees your deal closes on time. And then they're part of the Minnesota Housing Program, which is up to $18,000 in down payment or closing cost assistance. And in addition, if you mention T-Wolves special, you go to twolvesmortgages.com. You may be eligible for your first year at 1% below your note rate. So again, this is the Dream Team at Supreme Lending. You can call Ben today at 612-268-5454 or visit twolvesmortgages.com for more info. Let Ben and his team help you out in your home buying experience. And also, if you are going to, the step before that is finding your home. You'll need a realtor for that. I've been telling you all about Adriana Lonick from Coldwell Banker Realty. This show is also brought to you by Adriana Lonick and Coldwell Banker Realty. And whether you're a first-time home buyer or you've bought or sold many homes, Adriana wants to help you make your next purchase or sale the best experience it can be. You can see up on the screen, this is the dancingrealtor.com. That's Adriana's website. It's a place to connect with you, but she does have the splash page here opens up. If you book a strategy session with her, you'll be eligible to win some Timberwolves tickets for next season. And just if you are thinking about buying, like that is the first step. Adriana wants to help making home buying or home selling more accessible to you. So again, the dancingrealtor.com, or call her or text her at 715-304-9920 to book a consultation. Again, her name's Adriana Lonick. She works with Coldwell Banker Realty. The dancingrealtor.com. Get the ball rolling on home ownership and score a pair of free Wolves tickets at the dancingrealtor.com. All right, Britt, I'm assuming what you were getting to before we jumped in the break there was some of the players who up and down, right? You're like, whoa, what is this? And then it kind of cools off. Or I think Leonard Miller and Minott kind of did that in reverse. The
Leonard Miller and Minott. And I really think Minott, I mean,
you can't say Josh Minott's name without laughing. I love that about you. It's always
he's charming what bothers me is that I don't feel like the progression arrow is a steady forward upward. And
that's exactly what I said with Kyle too. I was like, it's not up, it's not down, it's just here. It's the same, and I can't really figure it out. But it's not bad.
Trending, but it's kind of like the stock market or whatever. You see these things where these slightly jagged arrows that keep going up and down, up and down, up and down, but very, very gradually going up, And so I do think that the guy is improving, but I'm also very aware that he wants a chance sooner rather than later. And I don't know. I mean, I think that Shannon and Miller and Minott, to me, at best for Minott, everybody's on the same plane there, and that's not great in your third year. And when you already have a stuffed front court. Right. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it'll ever work out. It's funny how things happen where sometimes roles land in your lap and you take it and run with it. And then other times, you didn't never. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I think, is a good example of this, is he never really got plugged into the right situation. And, It may have, I mean, Minott may turn out to be a very good player somewhere else because he's impatient. But one of the things I did think was funny, and Deshaun Nix, by the way, talk about up and down. Whew.
Yeah, baby.
That dude, he won.
Oh, what do you mean down? He was good. He was the best Wolves player at Summer League.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was. What do you mean? Why? Who was better?
Oh, I think Shannon was better.
If you take the first game away from Shannon, would you? I mean,
I just think, well, if you're asking me like,
in the context of Summer League, let me clarify it. Like,
in other words, if I know nothing about any of these guys, and what I would be yelling about is why aren't they playing Shannon more? But I mean, I think Shannon was the best player on that Summer League team, bar none, including Dillingham. I just think his decision making is totally sensible. I mean, everything he does, he did not make a boneheaded play that I saw throughout the entire thing. I mean, Deshaun Nix made a dozen of them, if not more. Now Deshaun Nix was great in terms of the fact that he was aggressive and he wanted to show people what was in his bag, which we never saw last year. And some of it was great. But he is not the guy who should be seizing the reins most of the time.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying he's the one I'm like would invested most of like this.
I just think he was high and low. I think that there were definitely times when, first of all, his defense was a revelation. He used his size on the perimeter in a way that we never saw before. I'm not ripping the guy. I'm just saying he's one of those guys.
I know, but you're saying we never saw before. When would have we seen this?
Well, in the minutes he played, the few minutes he played for the Wolves. And also,
keyword few. I mean,
I think that if Deshaun Nix had the type of, if he played like this in practice, he would have gotten more burn.
I agree with that. Yeah, I do think it was a shift. He talked about a shift. He talked about that a little bit of like, this is his fourth year. He's like, my first 3 years in the league, I was, so nervous about, messing up or understanding. And what he said was, what I've learned is you can't really mess up if you just go. Like NBA coaches, that's not completely true.
No, right? But it really was the way he played.
yeah. So he believed it for sure.
And somebody who is that big and that relatively mobile for that size in that type of position, where he's kind of like not a combo guard, he's a combo 1-3,
Maybe a 5. I thought he was really good. I was very surprised, and I thought, like, given how strip mine the point guard position is,
that he may get some
that. Yeah, that you have a veteran point guard relative to a two-way, right? As about as veteran as you can get for a player on a two-way that plays point guard. Like that's like, if I'm going through the roster, I'm like, okay, that two-way spot, that's a good one. That's a good one to be invested.
And I think he did probably earn himself, roster rotation consideration. I mean, I think it would not surprise me to see him get 8 to 10 minutes a game, average. I think he might get like Monte Morris minutes.
Yeah, I think somebody would need to get hurt. Like,
unless Dillingham, you start to play Dillingham more off the ball in what you're talking about before. mean, if the starters are dinged up, or if Nikhil is moved to the first unit for whatever reason, or whatever happens, I can see him. And you're right, part of that would be injury, but part of it also, I do think a lot of it has to do with Dillingham being able to. He was a big brother for Dillingham during Summer League. He was the guy when there was, Philly played really good aggressive defense as well. That's why there were so many whistles in that game. And
They
Knicks.
played zone in a summer league game, man. They
Yeah, I
played
know
zone.
that was well, and then that was kind of fun. It was
It
good
worked.
to have it. Yeah, well, exactly. So I'm not. I guess I am. I'm ripping Nixon in terms of the fact that he made a lot of stupid plays, but they were aggressively stupid plays. His shot selection was questionable at best. I mean, not that Josh Minott's wasn't, or Dillingham's for that matter. I mean, even as actually that's not true. Dillingham just missed those shots. But go ahead.
He got to the line a lot. I do think, and maybe let's go back to Shannon in that, like, it was much more deliberate. It made sense what he was doing the majority of the time. The only thing that really didn't make sense about Shannon's game offensively was how little he got the ball.
Right. And I think that was purposeful. I can't imagine that the Timberwolves, if they wanted to lean in to see what Shannon had, then it was totally inexplicable the way it was used.
Yeah, I think this is where I'm at with it. Like, if they wanted Shannon to be the like guard bucket getter, right? The Jalen Noel, the Shake Milton role we're talking about that we think Dillingham is supposed to fill.
Yeah.
If they wanted Shannon to be that, I think they would have put the ball in his hands more and how many times did Shannon like catch it in the high quad, like top of the floor, and it was like, all right, screen for him here, like a direct action for him. So much in that first game, just so much of Shannon's plays that popped came in transition, whether it was a steal or just like Dillingham found him like with some of those hit ahead passes, the transition.
Yep.
And I think it's actually good that first game happened to get us excited about him, because that first game was super exciting. Yeah. And then it kind of went and the usage dropped off a little bit. They got out in transition a little less. So Shannon did a little less in terms of the frequency, which is probably what, if he does, get in the rotation, that's probably what the role will look like, is like, hey, for a quarter, if we're getting out in transition or this team's not getting back, or we're forcing turnovers, you might have like 10 points in 3 minutes because we're just going to feed you the ball in those situations. But I also think there will probably be extended periods of time where he's just chilling in the corner, and it'll be a question of, how much of a threat is he from the corner to actually catch and shoot. That was a knock on his college scouting report, is the catch and shoot three and the willingness to shoot it. A lot of the time in those first two games, he had some catch and shoot opportunities and he decided to get downhill and go score, which he did. Like we can't knock him for that. We go like, I'm going to pass this three up, but I'm going to go get an and one instead and finish it. And he did. The question is, in the NBA context, should he just be shooting that? Probably, when he's the fourth or fifth option there. But in terms of what the straight line drives were, the attacks, the physicality, I think particularly in person, he's big as hell, man. Like, he's like 6'8". He's like what we normally refer to guy. He was 6'6" without shoes. So now they're like showing him up with the thing like 6'6". I'm like, nope, that's normally what we call a 6'7", 6'8" guy. And he's big and thick, and obviously he's 24, so that helps him in summer league some.
Absolutely.
But well, what do you like?
Well,
if he does get a role, what do you think?
I think his role is going to be, again, it's very easy to get excited about people you just watch play versus the dozen guys who are probably better who aren't playing. So, but what I will say is what impressed me is his court vision is excellent. He will get the ball to someone else in a good position. He's not a fancy passer, but he understands ball movement, the rhythm of ball movement. He understands the rhythm of moving without the ball. He is comfortable in a half-court motion offense. He is not necessarily comfortable in ending in a three-point catch and shoot from him. I agree with that. But I do think if he does put it on the deck, he doesn't have to finish. He is aware of the weak side corner being open if he puts it on the deck sometimes. We saw that a few times where he fed skip pass to the, off the bounce to the opposite corner. I think he's playmaking selectively like that will be good. I also think If he's,
I saw way more of just like a tunnel vision driver.
oh, I didn't. All right, so that's interesting. I did not saw a guy who was willing to give up the ball. When he did, good things happened. I don't know how many dimes he had. I never looked at the stats.
It was, and that might be what I'm is like clouding mine some because I know he didn't have many assists. I do. I remember like you're not.
Well, understand who he was passing to in the.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're not wrong that. It's not like he never passed, and I think I tweeted a clip out of it of like actually here was a good example of he found Jalen Clark in the corner.
We know how that happens. Holy shit,
open.
Joel! The Jalen Clark is in the corner. I mean, better try like a Harlem Globetrotter bounce dunk.
I don't know, man. I kind of like Jalen Clark's shot looked a little bit different. We're seeing different things, man.
We are. Yeah, no. I think Jalen Clark was like a 90 on defense and a 10 on offense.
Oh yeah, I'm not putting him way higher than a 10, but like, I mean, he didn't do anything, but like, what the way I'm looking at Jalen Clark is like, that's all I want you to do is like.
But he can't do that. I mean, believe me, as somebody who watched that guy just bust his ass 2 hours before every game, I'm pulling for him. Plus, I love, he basically in his introductory press conference said, I run through walls, I mean, and somebody tells me they want me to go kill myself, I'll go kill myself, And so I love that attitude. But he can't shoot. He can't shoot.
I thought the shot looked a little bit better than you did. He had another.
He did hit a corner three last night late in the game, and I was shocked. I was shocked.
Let me play this Jalen Clark clip. We asked him about just like kind of coming back.
All right.
After a year. This was, I think, after the second game.
Yesterday was like a surreal feeling. I was telling all the coaches, like, even though I didn't do much, it took like 3 quarters for me to even realize like I'm really back playing. If you know what I mean, like it was just, I was just out there smiling, just running up and down. I'm like, okay, bro, you gotta actually do something now. So 2 days ago, that was like me all taking in. Today, I told all the coaches, I'm good, I'm locked in, like I'm ready to go. So I came in here with a mission. I made a bet one of our coaches I was getting more 5 steals, and then I felt like I had more than 6, but we'll leave it up for discussion.
What's the like year just kind of been like, knowing that you've had to sort of progress through this?
Yeah, I think the thing that's made it the hardest is no one's seen my progress. So I go places and everybody asks me a million questions and tries to like assume and guess. But it's been a great year, bro. Like, I don't regret anything that happened. If I don't tear my Achilles, I don't think I'm in Minnesota currently at this moment. So I think everything happens for a reason. I'm happy Tim Conley and them took a chance on me, and I'm very grateful to be here in Summer League with all the guys. Like, this is a great group. Summer League group is great. Back at home with the Minnesota, the 8, the real team is great. The guys in Iowa are great. Like, it's a whole great organization all around.
Kind of at the end there, the organization seems
great attitude.
Point there.
Yep. And if you need to get a stop, I mean, he's got a little Caruso in him in terms of just relentless, but not necessarily on ball and then off ball, on ball and then off ball. It's like he tries to bait people into thinking he's off them, or he tries to bait people into trying to, make a pass to his man. He's busy playing really kind of strategic defense without breaking the systemic 5-man shell or assignments. He's freelancing within the system.
I agree with that.
He is an elite defender. And if he could shoot more than 33%.
Well, that was going to be my question. What's the number? What's the number?
I actually think the number is like 45 effective field goal percentage. Yeah. And I would say like 54 true shooting percentage. I mean, it's got to be it's going to be way below the NBA average because he's that good on defense. But I will tell you, even in Summer League, they were shifting him out on defense, offensive rotations, and it makes total sense to me because he is a disruptor in a unique way on defense, and he's tough but smart on defense. but he can't shoot. He cannot shoot.
Better or worse shot than Josh
And Okogie?
Yep.
Depends on the season, doesn't it? I mean, Okogie had his moments. He put it this way: he's never had Okogie stretches of goodness on shooting yet. Now that obviously very small.
But Okogie got to play, so I'm pretty sure Okogie shot like 29% on catch and shoot threes that year where he started.
But there was a season where Okogie, I think it might have been his second season, it might have been his third, but he had a decent shooting year for a while, and then it fell off the truck. What I'm saying is he essentially, there have been 3 to 5 weeks.
Here are Josh Okogie's 3-point shooting numbers while in Minnesota.
All right.
As a rookie, 27.9%.
Yep.
On 215 threes. His second year, 26.6% on 154 threes. His third year, 26.9% from three on 108. And his final year, 29.8% from three on 47 attempts. So in his time in Minnesota overall,
never hit 30.
He was a 27.5% 3-point shooter.
All right.
And has still remained a fringe NBA rotation sort of player.
And 25% works out to 37.5% field goal.
Woo.
Well, no, what I'm saying, remember what I said was 45 is what I would say. I mean, put it this way: if Josh Okogie was on the Wolves right now, he would be in the same position that Jalen Clark is in.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
for the record, I'm not saying that Jalen Clark should be in the rotation.
No. But what I will say is that he had a reputation of not being able to shoot in college, and that is why nobody drafted him, even when he got hurt, I think. And there was nothing in Summer League to me, and you saw something, and you want to be fair. I mean, in this argument, you watched mechanics of shooting, especially live. When I'm not live, I'm watching TV. You see practice, you see reps. There may be something about his shot. I saw him plenty before games last year, and he just isn't not only isn't he a shooter, he isn't even necessarily a bad shooter yet. He's a horrible shooter.
I would disagree with that.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's a good shooter. Okay, so this is the thing when you were talking. All right, so you draft Jalen Clark 53rd overall a year ago with a torn Achilles.
Yep.
What is the ideal scenario from there going forward? Right, you sign him to a 2-year, 2-way contract.
Yep. The ideal scenario is
no. Let me do it. So in those 2 years, you feel confident enough to in probably his health coming back, his defense translating post Achilles, and his shot being decent enough to continue to invest in, and you give him a Josh Minott type contract, just some cheapy, whatever sort of deal. I think where we're at this moment with Jalen Clark is, okay, you got him under that contract. Physically, he looks good.
He's
right?
ready.
In terms of
he's definitely ready.
And then the disagreement, and granted, we don't have anywhere near enough of a sample size on the shot at all, but you can go over the course of this season, and that you can have tracked, and that you can be looking at in the G League of what that looks like. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I wouldn't be totally stunned if at the end of the G League season or whatever, you're like, oh, he actually shot a decent clip from there, and he's a player that's worth bringing back on a cheap contract because the defense will translate if the shot comes. The shot looks different. It's too much of a dip, right? He's got the ball more in front of his body than he used to. He changed his mechanics, and he's really dipping that down almost between his legs to come back up and take it. What I like about it is it's the same thing over and over again, which kind of goes to the
and he will be left open to do that.
Right.
I mean, it isn't like he's going to get closed out on to the point where he can't make that weird shot. I
just didn't think it was that weird. I don't know. I mean,
well, again, when I say the weird shot, just coming from between his legs, coming way low and coming up. It's not weird necessarily, but and the weirdness to me is just how much it doesn't go in. You know, I mean,
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't think your prognosis is wrong. First of all, if you grade people, you know, I mean, I don't know if it's a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 10. I think he's a 90 on defense. He's a 4 or 5 on defense, whatever you want. He is very close to being an elite defender right now. He has to learn the NBA, and he has to learn what NBA bodies do to you when they run the same sets that you've figured out against lesser talented people. But I do think that he could be a weapon, selectively used. It's just that he is an incredibly lopsided player. He is like Garza,
like the rest of the bench,
like Garza 2 years ago. You know, where you know, like the guy couldn't defend anybody ever, and still can't really. I mean, is better at it, but is there because he's a point getter. You know, Luka Garza gets a bucket. Well, Jalen Clark stops a bucket, and the reliability with which Luka Garza will put up points, I think, is a reliability on a same level, not necessarily starter level, but NBA level, that Jalen Clark can stop points. And so I agree. He remains an intriguing piece. And let's face it, you want intriguing pieces with your 1.5 at the bottom of your salary structure, you know?
Right.
You know, your $2 million a year or whatever it is you're paying him. So
no, paying him at 2A, nothing. I mean, like no cap. I mean, the other 2 ways are Dacian Nix and Jesse Edwards, you know.
Yeah.
So like,
what's Minott getting? You said a Minott type contract. You were talking about the following.
I was saying, like the next. So the Minott signed that the Gupta special. Remember we called it that, where
exactly.
It's like minimum for 4 years, not guaranteed.
Yeah,
whatever.
that's what I thought. When you said that, that's what I thought they'd just done with Jalen Clark.
No, that would be like next year if they like him enough. You know, can you, or maybe at some point during the season you boost him to an NBA contract with the next year non-guaranteed or whatever. Right. You know, and that's I mean, this is a 53rd overall pick in the second round.
Right.
But
at this point in time, I mean, I don't care about where they came from. You know, it's like Jade McDaniels, you know.
That's a good point.
And so I do think, though, that it made sense. The pick made sense to me. And if he becomes a 35% shooter from 3-point range, he is worthy of a rotation spot.
Yeah. And that I guess I can now, for the first time ever, somewhat picture that. So I'm getting caught in the allure of that idea, because I came
perfectly legit, and that's legit.
You know, the guy, I did ask him about the shot, and I think pretty sure this is a direct quote. The shot's not a problem no more, bruh. So I don't know. That was we'll keep tracking. We'll keep tracking the Jalen.
He's running walls.
So I did pods with Kyle after the first 2 games where we focused on Dillingham and particularly Shannon. We were both kind of raving over after those
He's
first
raveable.
2 games. Yeah, but Miller like got poked in the eye in the first game, didn't really do anything in the second game, and so I was kind of saying to Kyle, I'm like, well, you know, at this point, I'm like, you know, I haven't really seen anything out of Leonard Miller yet. But what I did say, I was like, let's talk about it after all 4 games are done. Let's see what he did. And Miller looked significantly better, particularly in that 3rd game and then last night as well, showcasing that one skill that I think we know he has, which is like kind of being a menace under the basket offensively in terms of offensive rebounds, tip-ins, you know, drop-off passes, finishing there. Like his second jump, you know, when it's like, that is he is really physically something. Leonard Miller is. putting it all together, I still think is a long ways away for him. But I was really encouraged by the third and fourth game of like, okay, there it is. Like, much like with Clark, we're like, okay, I need to be seeing at least like, here's one NBA skill, you know, or like something that alludes to. Clark is, you know,
that's
Clark
a good
is
point.
The defense. And with Miller, it's like, yeah, he could be an impact. Like, I see a world where he's an impactful dunker spot guy like Vando a couple years ago, right?
Yep.
And on the offensive glass, just being a menace down there. I thought that was really encouraging. I think the third game he had like 22 and 15 or something like that. Doing all that stuff. Now the jumper, I've never been a believer in that.
It looks horrible. I mean, it goes in a lot more than you expect. And he does have a spread-legged jumper, which is going to hurt. I mean, teams are going to figure it out and get offensive fouls on him.
It's like the
he's a kick out.
Man.
He's a kick out jumper. You know, kick out jumpers. I don't understand people who have kick out jumpers why players don't run by them and fall over them. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. No. I
mean, because that's an offensive foul on a 3-point shot, which is is a great momentum changer. That's
probably why I'm more into the Clark one. Is it like at least the shot looks the same every time?
Yeah, no, I get that.
And I don't, you probably right. Like if they had a 3-point shooting contest, maybe Leonard Miller would win right now. Right. But when it's like, it's hard for me to see a player who one of their main question marks is the jump shot. And when I watch them take jump shots in the game or in warmups, it looks different every time.
Yeah.
And that's maybe my own bias or whatever, but like it makes it harder to believe it.
We obviously don't have nearly enough sample size, and I wasn't with the team, so I couldn't be in a position to ask about this or anything. Miller and Shannon on the court do not fit. And that is interesting to me, that they, for whatever reason, they both are kind of similar in terms of where they like to go and what they like to do. And I think they get in each other's way. It's clearly fixable if you want to fix it, you know. Right. I don't know how often the two would share the floor, 3 years from now. And if they do, it clearly will be ironed out. But I did think it was interesting that Miller thrived when Shannon wasn't on the court.
Well, I didn't put that together, but now that you say it, I see it. And a related thing I had off of that I put down in my notes on Shannon here was play him with, if Shannon plays, play him with Rudy as little as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Shannon,
he's a dynamic player.
Well, and it's just that it's that downhill attack that kind of takes up a ton of space when he's attacking. I mean, just because he's big, it is the straight line drive. But I think Shannon really benefited from part of the reason why I think Shannon had a better game the first game was they were really playing 5 out, and like that Jesse Edwards, the 7-footer guy, didn't play much.
Yeah.
And then they brought Edwards into the rotation more for games 2, 3, and 4 to run pick and roll with Dillingham. But then Edwards is living in the Gobert spot, that dunker spot area, which that gets in the way of somebody like Shannon, who's just trying to get downhill. Much like we saw Gobert get in the way of Ant all the time.
Right.
When Ant was trying to get downhill there. So I think to the second unit overall, remember when we used to talk all the time about that first season about toggling the defenses when Rudy was at the 5 versus Cat was at the 5?
Yep.
I think I'd like to see more like offensive stylistic toggles based on when Rudy's on the floor versus when he's off the floor this season. I just think this team, the personnel, mainly Ant, would really benefit offensively from as many minutes as possible in a more spread floor environment.
Well, Finch strongly hinted, he didn't say we're going to separate Rudy and Ant. In fact, he said we're going to lean into it when they're on the court together more and more. And I think that is something that they chartered, I think, assiduously all year, whether or not Rudy and Ant were meshing or not. But if you are going to open up your offense and get more points in transition, you need to have a freedom and an abandon it's part of your mindset when you're on the court. Rudy was a fantastic communicator about defensive discipline, but I think that is one of the reasons why they did not release unless they were damn sure they could release.
Sure.
And I think that you just saw what happened when Nas and Ant are on the court together. There's some magic going on, and I can see both Dillingham and Shannon just digging that magic. I mean, you know, that is now defense. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing is it's like the Ant and Nas, and you saying that I can picture that immediately, right? The Nas Ant magic you're getting to, and I'm sure listeners can as well. The thing is there's a magic to the Ant and Rudy game too. It's just defensively.
Yes,
and
exactly.
it's not the sparkly magic. It's just
Right.
like whoop, all of a sudden I got the ball, you know, like that type of magic rather than.
But you know what?
flashy.
What I think of when I think of Ant and Nas on the court together is how much time is played from top of the key to top of the key. Things are just bing, bing. Things are turning over in a blink. I mean,
Right.
you get the ball and they're running. It's almost like nobody is standing down by the baselines ever. You know, people are running back and forth. And by the time you get to inside the circle of the free throw circle, the play is gone. You're turning around and going back the other way. It isn't a 94-foot game in some respects. It's a game that is so quick that you don't set up 94 feet. You don't ever set up, actually. You move in like 80-foot segments back and forth. And that to me is beautiful basketball. And I know it's Chris Finch's jam, you know. I mean, and so one of the many things I appreciate about Chris Finch is he can love two things at once. He can love Rudy Gobert's defense and what Rudy Gobert does, and he can love the kind of basketball and offense I just described, and he can realize that he can't get both of them at the same time very often, if at all. Yeah. So I think one of the things they're going to be working on this offseason is how much more they can get the offensive jam without getting too much in the way of the defensive jam.
Right, without jamming up the defense.
Yeah, and also you give Ant too much candy if you keep that offense that way, and you're already, you know, needing to keep him on the defensive keel, and that's what a lot of Rudy's work is during the season.
Totally.
So if Ant is in the middle of a 21-6 run on offense, you can be damn sure that the pick and roll on defense or the peripheral vision is not going to be there. You know, I mean, there are penalties, and maybe Ant will surprise me and be more consistent at that end. But it is trade-offs. The NBA is always about trade-offs, you know. I mean,
particularly a Rudy Gobert team, man. Like what team more has that like baked into who they are of like we're trading offense for defense or defense for offense based on a person.
And you know who did was the Clippers. The Clippers had a certain way of playing that I always thought the Clippers, their defense was clearly a secondary priority for them.
Okay. I was wondering where you're going with that.
I mean, you know, it's like, well, I mean, it's just that much talent on the floor. And James Harden can play defense. Kawhi obviously is a legendarily elite defender, and Paul George is a very good defender. But if Zubac wasn't in the game for the Clippers, you know, they had problems. And it was that they sold their soul to their ISO offense, you know, and Phoenix did the same thing. I mean, you know, that's why those teams flop so badly. And that's why, as much as we love to watch Ant and Nas cavort, Rudy is a winner.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think related to this, and we haven't talked about it on the pod, or I don't think we've done a pod together since the Joe Ingles signing happened, you know, he is much like Rob Dillingham, you know, part of that idea of, can we jam in more offense without jamming up the defense? And I mean, I'm just pretty pumped about like the first positive thing I think about with that is the like, okay, there's a 45% shooter in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And what that could do, even if it's just, you know, in a limited 8th, 9th man role there. Not to mention the familiarity he has,
lobs.
with Rudy, and the fact that he's on a minimum contract, you know, to replace Slomo, who went for significantly more than the minimum in terms of years and dollars.
Right.
I think that particularly now, when we, you know, a month and a half from now or whatever, once we start getting into training camp and previewing the season, there's going to be this strong memory of Terrence Shannon really popping at Summer League. Deservedly so. He did. I don't think on this episode, we've even given him enough credit for the excitement that we did see from him. But I'm still going to have, in my opinion, going into training camp next season, I'm going to have Joe Ingles in my rotation pecking order above Terrence Shannon Jr. Not because the ceiling is massively high of that, but a year ago when he was 36 years old, he made his threes at a really high clip. He's done that. He's been one of the very best shooters in the NBA for the last decade. And
if he was on that Summer League team, the Wolves would still be playing.
He's a little old.
But I mean, you know, you couldn't buy an outside shot from that team.
True.
I mean, you know, and so you say, because you saw it last year too. As good as they shot the three, they had gaps in those rotations that really hurt. And so, to your point, being able to have a guy come off the bench, and what's great about him is he could make that three. He could also just throw up a lob, and he was probably Rudy's best lob guy in Utah. I remember when they were both just like flying, or, you know, when Utah maybe had the best offense in the NBA. Joe Ingles was like leading the NBA in 3-point percentage and also averaging like 6 dimes a game. I mean, now that's a long time ago in terms of Joe Ingles' body, but
like also, the bubble.
But also the memory that there's a reason he signed for the minimum. It's a reason why Tim Conley went and got him. Another complimentary guy to Rudy, so that when you want to play that half-court offense that involves a few whirring pieces and not much else, high pick and roll, lob, dribble drive lob, whatever, they have some guys, Conley, Ingles, and Ingles, and Rudy on the floor. Will be flashback time, and Ingles will hurt you on defense, I think. But I also think that there will be times when Ingles is a better option on offense than Jaden McDaniels. Yeah,
I mean, just based on the value of floor spacing and
his
shot making.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm like really excited about that one.
And again, he could be finished. You know, right. I mean, he did not get nearly as much time as he should have gotten in Orlando.
And that was probably a
youth thing, and
and I think a big part of it when I was like looking into it. So they were another team.
They couldn't shoot either.
They couldn't shoot, and they really lacked point guard play.
Yeah.
And so Ingles got kind of shoved more into the point guard role, and he had his highest turnover season of his career, right? Because when you're the point guard with minimal shooting around you, that's hard. And 2, they're just going to press up on you, right? And then it was just like when I was watching the clips, then Ingles gets like forced in the situation, like balls being denied. Okay, I got to go to the basket, like get downhill. I don't have Rudy to throw it to. Yeah, it was like there's a lot of like funky in between passes where you're like, what percentage of the time is that pass going to actually go? His finishing ability, like getting downhill and scoring. I mean, he's really big, but he can like get him up. But yeah, that's it. That was something
finishing
that was there.
and a handle in traffic are not his game.
No.
They're not his game. I mean,
And-
you talk about catch and shoot. The
Mhm.
reason you want him instead of Shannon is because he can catch and shoot a three.
Yes.
And that can be really important, especially in blended lineups that have Rudy playing with a second unit or have catch and shoot. Cat even. Cat functions, sometimes better in that. I can see Ingles and Cat doing really well too, just because they both play what I would call 3/4 speed offense. I mean, it's not really breakneck transition ball, but
I hope he's patient with Cat.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like Ingles is a little prickly.
He's smart. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, there's that. But he can be a real asshole on the court. I mean, to the other team and to the refs, and I don't know how it. I mean, again, I thought his career might be over that time.
We were at that game.
We saw him wreck his knee and
Target Center. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think he'll ever fully recover from that. Mm-hmm. But I think what you're getting for the price, I totally agree, is somebody who he's smart. At the very least, he'll try to do enough of what he can't do to make it's far better to have somebody who tries enough that the opponent sees the effort and gets off the reaction that he wants to make versus a guy who just is unaware that the guy is coming open. Yeah. And then you hit that, Ingles will be aware when his guy is coming open and will hurry to try to cover that. And that may be enough for certain passing to not happen. Sure. I guess what I'm saying is he will try to compensate and he won't do it effectively enough, but he will do it with some effectiveness because of his intelligence.
Yeah, I think remember when with Jalen Noel where he just when he had to play and he had to play point guard, even though that wasn't his position and his efficiency really dropped because of that. But Finch was like, I don't really have any other options to play here. I think it's important for Finch because he's going to like Ingles, much like he did Anderson.
Right.
And there's
going
to be
not the same way though.
Yeah, not the same way, but there's similar.
If he does, we're going to have to call him on.
Well, and that's the thing.
The type thing, and he's got a type, but let's not get the lesser prototype and pretend he's the greater prototype.
Well, exactly. That's what my point is he's going to need to resist the urge to play Ingles at point guard because there's so few point guards on this team.
Right.
Which is something Jamal Mosley did not do last year, and Ingles' overall effectiveness was hurt because of it. What Ingles can do right now is be a super efficient shooter on low volume.
Yep.
And even some passing stuff, lob stuff when he gets downhill, but you don't want to overly I think expand that role when he's 37 years old, though the roster in ways is going to kind of tease Finch to be able to do that. The last thing I had down the PJ Dozier signing also happened. We don't have to spend a lot of time on PJ Dozier. I think that's literally the last spot on the roster right now. But that contract, I think some people were like, what? You signed PJ Dozier to the minimum when a lot of these other guys are out there who still out there right now. We're going to probably sign for the minimum. We did get confirmation that that's only a partially guaranteed contract, kind of like Austin Rivers was like that a couple years ago, where, they'll be on the team at the beginning of the year, then they got to kind of earn the rest of their guarantee for the rest of the season. So I think that's the way to think about Dozier as that last spot on the roster. Kind of this is a weird comparison, that Team USA went with Derek White, right? For their last spot, where it's just somebody who's not going to rock the boat. I think that's what Tim Conley was thinking thinking there, and it's only partially guaranteed, so you could waive him at any point.
I was going to say that his attitude, he will be a comfortable 12th man. I think
Even 14th,
or whatever. Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to
uh-huh.
put. I mean, he'll be similar to T.J. Warren, in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
He's also got size.
Yep.
He's got an NBA body, and he's not afraid to play defense. He isn't great at it, but he's not bad at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he can hit a shot every now and then. I mean, he's a fringe NBA player, which is exactly what he's getting paid to be, and exactly what he is. And he might surprise us with a really good game, and he might disappoint us with a series of bad ones that relegate him to obscurity.
But, or off the team.
Or off the team. But he is very low risk. I don't know who else is out there that, somebody else might say, well, why didn't we sign him? But I do know that we don't need a veteran version of Josh Minott. When the hell they're going to get minutes,
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. He played like a little bit more like on the ball point guardy in Serbia last year. I think, again, he's
Shades of Shake Milton. I mean, you could make some Shake Milton comparisons.
I think so.
And they love Shake Milton because of his size. I mean, that was... They kept on saying he was going to line up so well with Rudy, which turned out to be a total fib. But but I think that the idea that he's big and we want to get more physical, if you remember, that was a Finch mantra last year.
Yeah.
And clearly the mantra holds. If you saw Summer League, I mean, they're bruising. They want to be bruisers, and I'm all in for that. I love the idea of bruising defense and freewheeling offense. I don't know how well you can really fold them into the same team.
Right. That's the interesting thing.
I'll tell you right now, if both are successful, we're going to have a lot of fun watching this team.
Yeah, no, I think that is probably like the main takeaway, I think, from the kind of the whole offseason, if we include Summer League in it too. Like, they made some roster decisions that take away from sort of the imbalanced nature of the team, which was all defense, less so offense. But I think kind of to make up for losing some defense in Anderson and replacing them with guys like Dillingham and Ingles, the idea is to like kind of double down on that physicality, that tenacity. We are going to play guys all the time who on the perimeter provide resistance defensively. We know that's the number one most important thing to Finch. And when I look at this team outside of Dillingham, I'm pretty sure everyone, Dozier included, can and like has the physical ability to be able to be a tenacious perimeter defender, because that will be the expectation. Just like it was the expectation for Monte Morris, who hadn't historically done that, but he came in and did it because he knew that was his pathway to minutes on the team last season. I am excited to see this team double down on that, as it seems like they certainly will, while also trying to incorporate some more shooting. Dillingham and Ingles should provide that to the rotation, and this team should be ready to go again.
And two cool guys, Monte Morris and Slow-Mo, went to really good places. Yeah. Monte Morris in Phoenix makes a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. And Slow-Mo in Golden State, especially if he's not necessarily on the court with Draymond, makes a ton of sense, because he does a lot of what Draymond does. And your idea of him being a closet backup center can work in Golden State. I know. He can do all the Draymond Green sets where he's at the top of the key directing the offense. Mm-hmm. And he actually may even be smart enough to be the communicator on defense. The Draymond, not obviously nearly as good, but I do think I'm excited for what he might be able to do on that veteran roster with a guy like Steve Kerr. I mean, I think it's a cool place for him. I'm happy to see it, because I really do think that he was a joy to watch for 2 years, even though he was terrible to watch often. And I think that Monte Morris impressed me with his professionalism while he was here, and I thought his defense, his ability to negotiate screens on pick and rolls, which Phoenix didn't do at all last year, ever. And so he will get a lot of the Josh Okogie minutes to bring it full circle.
Sure.
In terms of because he can hit a shot and he can handle the ball. So hats off to both of them, and I'm glad they went to places that they'll probably come back and torture the Wolves in different times.
The only person who'll miss Kyle Anderson more than you and I is Chris Finch.
Oh man, I mean it'll be kind of funny. And he was even during the exit interview saying, we got to figure out a way to get Slow-Mo more help on the second unit.
Yeah. Tim said, nope, new plan. New plan. No, I am interested to see how this whole second unit comes together, how much more maybe there's an integration of the first unit built into the second unit. I think there's some opportunity for Cat in particular to play with that second group more to get more juice out of it. I don't know. Those are probably more September conversations as we dig into that. But yeah, I don't know. I leave the offseason and summer league with a lot more information on the players that we lacked information on. Right. That's why I do think summer league is always interesting and informative, and we don't get many data points on a guy like Jalen Clark or Dacian Nix or whatever, but we do get those 4 games, and we'll remember those and we'll talk about those if and when there are injuries and one of them needs to get into the rotation or whatever. But yeah, man, this was fun. You got anything else? Any final thoughts?
No, I'm good.
Sweet. Well, I guess this has been the end of our summer league coverage here. We'll kind of keep going with episodes through July a little bit. They'll be increasingly sparing, particularly once we get into August, just for you listeners. So how this is going to work. That's kind of the time we take off, but there is going to be some of this Team USA stuff. I think it'd just be fun to pop on and do some pods with that too. So a couple more episodes here in July. Probably bug Britt to come back on before July's over, maybe after the Team USA stuff does begin in earnest with the actual Olympics games. But yeah, man.
Finch has been not Finch. Kerr has been coy about his starting lineup things. It's been fairly interesting to see, especially that fifth slot has gone from Booker to Ant to Tatum, and you can't go wrong. I mean, that's the thing, Yeah. Oh, you're starting a guy, and that means 2 of those other guys are coming off the bench. Well, not bad.
Right. No, Ant kind of has made that team make the most sense when he comes off the bench and sort of provide, because when I've been watching those games, it's like beginning of the game, I'm like, man, you guys just play, just play and get into your, there's a real resistance. Ant is playing though. Ant is just playing. And that's why I think he's having the best.
Yeah, I agree. I think that all players are trying to figure out, it's very, very hard for superstars to figure out how to be editing themselves without feeling like they're not giving their all.
Sure.
The one guy, and we'll wrap it up here because we could go on for another 20 minutes, but the one guy I've seen in international play who adapted to international play in a way that was even better than his Hall of Fame career in the NBA was Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony in international play was a different human being, and I enjoyed his game so much more. I was not a Kobe light too often at the time in the NBA, and he was a different player in the Olympics. And I would just love one of these guys, LeBron, Tatum. Durant, Tatum. Yeah. I mean, somebody just being able to be that glue guy naturally. And I don't know how Melo became that naturally because he was so anti-glue in his career. But that's what Team USA needs, because the world will be coming for them, and there's some really good teams. Yep. So I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. And I think it's going to be fun to watch as long as your ego isn't totally wrapped up in the fact that the USA might get its ass handed to them once or twice,
Yeah, it is always interesting. Like, and I kind of like get it from like a player like Tatum, for example, or Ant, right? Like you're in your own personal arc. You are in the like, like you are going up, and there's this chance to really.
You are in air that very, very few people get to breathe.
And so when you're in that air, like I would understand the impulse to be like,
I'm staying in this air.
I'm the number one option, right? Like, and he's doing it. I think I don't know how old Melo was. I mean, when that year that worked was that?
Yeah, he actually played in 2 different Olympics and was great.
But he was probably like a little bit older. It already kind of like established who he was. I think there's just like the impulse for all of them to be like, no, I want to be the dude. Whereas that's what makes somebody like Drew Holiday so perfect on that. And that's why he'll probably be one of the starting spots. Because it's just like the one guy who's not going to try and get him.
Who thinks that way, right?
Yeah.
And Derek White.
Exactly. PJ Dozier. Yeah, man. We'll keep watching Team USA stuff, and we'll come back to talk about Ant, because I do think Ant actually is in the situation to just be special, and be the face of it. I think he already kind of has been. He did that last year on a lesser team. That'll be fun to track. We'll be back to talk about it. But until then, I'm not sure. Maybe we'll do a pod. I don't know. Me and Brad or somebody do a pod sometime next week. But we'll lose our specific structure to this. But we'll be talking about Team USA when that comes. And yeah, until then, he's Britt. You can follow him on Twitter at Britt Robson. I'm Dane at DaneMooreMBA. Yeah, until sometime next week. He's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Grinning hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.